Well done. I see the people are coming in. So, John, I will just admit them as they come in. Um, it's wonderful to have um, such a big group online, and I suspect that the reason why so many people have attended is because of the nature of the presentation. Um, I can remember having discussions with Johan Kruger as far back 15 years ago around this issue of reserve studies and reserve plan management as being, in my view and in ARC's view, probably one of two um, issues that haven't not been addressed properly and seriously enough in our industry, one of which is the whole staffing component, career planning, professional designations, professional qualifications, coaching, mentoring, and succession planning of staff. And the other being in how we plan for future maintenance and replacement costs, commonly known as reserve planning. You may not know it, and excuse me if it's going to be addressed by Johan or Adrian. But in other countries in the world, um, reserve planning is legislated. Special levies are banned or barred in most other countries around the world that have residential community industry in place. I can also report that we know that in the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act, there's a requirement for sectional title schemes to conduct what they call a 10-year maintenance plan. And while what these two speakers today are going to be addressing is so much more than a simple 10-year maintenance plan, but rather a fully integrated, fully professional um, reserve planning process, and while achieving the outcomes, which is a proper analysis from a physical and financial perspective of all future maintenance, repair, and replacement costs has become so critical. In fact, it is mooted, and I've heard from very reliable sources that the requirements for reserve studies to be conducted may very well be included in the Companies Act, but definitely in what CSOS are doing in respect of putting forward a revised CSOS Act. So it is our belief that this issue is going to become more than just a nice to have, and it is therefore timeous and highly recommended that we get in early. And as estate managers and boards of directors, we give this our serious consideration. Um, why Johan Kruger and Adrian Ordendal? Well, they started an organization a while back already based on their own experience. Now, you will know that Johan is very involved in our industry. We know he's been around for a long, long, long time. He's even been around longer than I have. Um, and you'll know that Adrian has been around a long, long time. I've known both of these gents for, I don't know, 18 years already. It goes back that far. Um, and while Johan has, um, I mean, irreplaceable or unmatched experience in our industry from an estate management perspective, from a board of director perspective, and from a service provider or what we would call a consultant perspective, if you like. Adrian has had a bit of a different um, initiation to our industry, you will know that Adrian started an organization which is called Glowvent. We know that they did remarkable work in the residential community communication side of things, and more recently on the access control side of things, and has over the last year been very involved in conducting financial reserve studies for estates. So we are very privileged to, from ARC's point of view, to have both of these gents online today. We're going to do it as follows. I'm going to pose certain questions to Johan. We'll do it in an interview format. We'll give them the opportunity to respond to those. We've given them a timeline of about 3 minutes per question. If you could jot your questions down or areas that you need more clarity on, and we will then have 15 to 20 minutes at the end for further questions or comments or areas of clarification. Let me also say that these webinars or Zoom meetings can be called at any time. So if anyone on the platform wants to introduce other estates that perhaps weren't on today to come on, then Johan and Adrian would be more than happy to schedule another hour or another half hour. Ideally, however, if anyone is interested, and I think it should be on a first come, first served basis, because I estimate that it's going to generate a hell of a lot of interest, to invite them to come over to your estate where they can go through any specific issues that you may have. So, in the form of introduction, that is it. I've got, I don't know how many questions, and I suspect that I'll throw in some curveballs as well, which I feel very comfortable doing because I've done that for 18 years with Johan and Adrian, um, and all has worked out perfectly well. So I'm going to kick off just by posing a question to Johan Kruger. And as with many of us on this platform today, Johan, you've been around the block many, many, many times. Not always the same block, sometimes different blocks, but you've cut your teeth on this industry. And I don't know, you've been in this industry longer than I have, and there's not many people that I can say that about. So I'd like to ask you, firstly, why, in your opinion, is reserve fund management such a critical aspect in running an estate? We know about security, landscaping, short-term insurance, solar energy, all of these good things, rules, regulations, architectural guidelines. Why has this become, and why now is it such a critical part of running a residential communities? And what risks arise if we don't do it? What's the outcome if we do nothing about planning our repairs, maintenance, and replacement costs going forward? And if you've got time, Johan, maybe just touch on best practices around the world, why other countries have done it, and in fact made it legislation, especially on the area of this horrible thing we call special levies. Why is it critical? What are the risks of not doing it?
Thank you, Jeff, and thanks for the kind words. Huh? It started in 1999, so it is a long time ago. And nice to see some familiar faces and people that I haven't met, and some of our existing clients, and some of the people that we've done reserve studies to, and some that we've got one or two in the pipeline. So, Jeff, money makes the world go round. Yes, there's all sorts of things in the HOA, but levies and the financial health and wealth of an HOA is probably the most important thing. That's where your biggest investment in your life is your property, and I mean, we as professionals look after that. So, reserve studies because it touches first of all the money and most of the other items in a homeowners association. If you look at the landscape in South Africa, why now? I think the estates are getting older. So 10 or 15 years ago, everything was brand new. Now we start to replace and replace again and replace again. And now suddenly we have to raise special levies to pay for those things that we have to replace. So I think that's one of the drivers. And we're also getting a more clever. Certainly, me or Adrian are not the ones that say that we know everything, but we have been a little bit exposed, and we follow the lead out of America. CAI plays a major role in this. A good friend of all of ours, Rob Felix, he's our go-to man, to touch base with. Of the 51, 52 states in America, 9, it's legislated, and especially after Champlain Towers collapsed in Florida, and a number of people died, and the managers there at Champlain Towers were CIA members, so that was very close to home. So they brought about 3, 4 years ago new guidelines, updated guidelines for reserve studies, 30 years looking forward. If you talk about the risks, I sit with the estates and they say, like, we want to do CPI levy increases, 4.5%. They're running into trouble. If it's not today, the year is today at the AGM. In 2 or 3 years' time, they've got to play catch up. Or some of the FDs come to the board and say, I've got the solution, no increases this year. And it just compounds and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then come special levies. And not special levies to fund capital projects, but special levies to just at least up the kitty, because there's no money to buy a pump. The pump breaks, we need to wait for the end of the month until the levies comes in. So that's what we're trying to achieve with the reserve study. Follow best practice out of America. So far, I think the ones that we've done, there's some very good feedback and information that we can provide the estates with. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Johan. Great stuff. I chaired an AGM a month or so back, and a question was raised from the floor. What do we expect going forward? Do you anticipate any future special levies? We've just moved in, and do we anticipate? And it couldn't be answered. How beautiful would it have been if they said, we're not expecting any. What we've done is we've increased our levy contribution towards a reserve plan to the following amount, which we've invested properly, which is growing nicely, so that we have catered for anyone who would like to see a copy of the spreadsheet that comes out at the end of this process of our reserve study plan. It would have been unbelievable. From a credibility point of view, it is so important. Adrian, you've also been involved in the industry, maybe from a slightly different angle to Johan. And as a director and partner in SmartReserves, you've been involved in a number of studies. From your perspective, what are some of the most common current practices communities rely on today, and where do these approaches typically fall short? What are some estates doing? I've heard comments like, how much should we have in our fund at any given time? Now, what is the minimum amount that we should have in our fund? If I put 5 months monthly levy into a different account, would that cater for it? That's what I've heard people saying, and that's what we as industry are saying. This is different. This is adopting a different approach to it. So, what are we relying on today from your experience, and where do they fall short?
Thanks, Jeff. I think the beauty of these interview questions, style interviews, is that regardless of what you ask, I'll probably answer what I want to answer anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, so the rugby is at a very good state at the moment. Now, just to add to you on, I think and it sounds so obvious, I suppose, but it's something I've learned as well. So the first thing I think, and Johan mentioned we follow America just because maybe a lack of other standards. We're trying to have people that guide us that we're doing for a really long time. We follow the NRSS National Reserve Study standards. And we've learned a lot from them. You can also welcome to visit our website. The address is behind my shoulder every now and again. I'll move it around. But you'll see that there's an article actually published summarizes those standards. So I think the first thing they try to achieve, and Johan, obviously correct me if I'm still missing it, but it's basically whatever facilities you have in place currently, you want to maintain it. We do look at new improvements, new capital projects. We can throw it in a pot. But I think the first purpose is whatever, when someone moves in, we also work with schools, not just estates. So the assumption is that whatever is there at the moment, you want it to be there indefinitely for 30 years, 40 years. And I'm not saying technology move on, but if you do have a controlled access at the gate, you'd expect it to have it in 10, 20, 30 years as well. So it all sounds so obvious, I suppose, but it's just to maintain and keep what you have. If you have tarred roads in your estate, you want to have tarred roads in 20 to 50 years, that's in a good condition. So we're not even talking about making it better. We just keep talking about maintaining it. And then there's two sections to that, Jeff. I'll get to your question just now. And again, it sounds so obvious, I suppose. It's first of all, how much do we need? And this is the very difficult question. And the second question is then, how do we pay for it? And I also say the second one, how do we pay for it? I wouldn't say it's easier, but people address that. So what we found in the industry in these various ways, and I guess I had a very good discussion with Put as well, giving me more perspective on and another way of looking at. But I think what we found is, first of all, and we haven't done a million, we've done quite a few. I haven't come across any estate that don't have a reserve fund. I think the principle of needing a reserve fund, needing some money on the side for these, I want to say, not even unplanned. You expect stuff to break. The National Reserve Study, they will follow a lot of webinars, and I always talk about Mother Nature. Mother Nature doesn't wait for anyone. So everybody's got some money set aside. We haven't found really estates. Some estates got more and some estates less. And then they all have their own way of funding it, which is all fine. I think the big discrepancy we maybe have found, which I believe we do slightly different, is the determining how much. And there's been many formulas, best practice, ideas. So when I say, I guess the fact that people do have something is a great start. And then the question is how much. And I want to say we go back to first principles. And we actually look at and that's the biggest portion of this exercise as well, is doing what we say component analysis. So we're looking at the estate, the community, and we're not experts in everything. Johannes got a huge amount of knowledge, and he plays a massive role here. But we do what we compile a component list, and this is a big portion of it. So we basically look at your community, and we'll say, you'll probably have to replace your cameras in 5 years. You'll have to resurface your road in 10 years. You'll have to do this and this and this and this. And again, I also want to add here quickly, and Jeff, please stop me because I'll speak forever, but it remains an art and a science. And I think it's important for people to understand. It's still a guess, but it's a scientific guess. So yes, at the end of the day, you'll draw a line in the sand. We'll do a study. We'll estimate this and this will have to be done next year. And as you know, in a year and 2 days from now, some major event happens and everything changes. But as Jeff also said earlier, at least you've done the homework, you've done the work, you've done the scientific planning that you can present to whoever, the homeowners, the board of directors. And I want to say that what's the legal term, any reasonable man would have done. So it remains a guess. It's not a perfect science. But how do we do it, Jeff? Is we do a component analysis. We look at the components. And that's something I have to say has been missing in most estates. You've got your operational people. I want to say Alfreda again because I was at Tees and Islands yesterday. She does her thing, although Tees and Islands does it very well. And then you've got your financial side. And it seems like there's not always a marriage between the two. And that's, I think, the two portions we're trying to get together. The first big exercise is determining the components, what needs to be done in the next 30 years. And then we bring the financial layer on top of it and say, okay, fine. This is what you need to do the next 30 years just to keep the estate in the current state. That includes replacements and maintenance items. And then we say, okay, now how much is this going to cost? And we do simple time value of money exercise. It's not rocket science. And you have a 30-year budget or spend budget. And once you have that, then you can say, okay, fine, how are we going to pay for this? So to summarize, I think all the states got something in place. We found one client who actually we do the second step we do is what we say current funded studies. So we've got the budget and the current funds. We had a client who actually had 99% current funded study. And the feedback from the director was, and I thought, shucks, because we always want to add value. Yeah, we didn't really add value. They've got the answers already. And the director said to us, so this is such a great exercise. At least now we can say at the NGM, why do we have so much money in our bank? So yeah, that's maybe in summary.
Yeah. So what excites me about this, about your approach, about your service, is one, it is perpetual. So at any given time, if you choose a 10 or 20 or 30, any given time, it is live. It is perpetual. So your picture is always exactly the same. The other is that it's a fully funded strategy, which means that we don't rely on thumbsuck figures of 5 times levy or 10 times levy. It's an integrated approach to it. And third is that so while you say we estimate, it's estimating costs to replace in however many years based on sound evidence, based on sound data. So the approach to talk to engineers, construction companies, painting contractors, bricklayers, road rebuilders, retarring guys. So every amount that is budgeted for in terms of our plan in respect of the life of the product is backed up by concrete current data. Am I correct in saying that? Just a yes or a no.
Mm. Yeah, Jeff, and
Jan?
Jeff, I agree with you, and I think our biggest challenge is all these misperceptions. You know, I hear words like a capital reserve fund study, a capital reserve fund. We're not talking about capital. We're talking with what you've got, not what you want to do. So it is maintain what you have, and we talk about components, because as we know, all estates get assets for R1 from the developer, or they buy it. A lot of things are not on the asset register. So we're talking about components, we're talking with what you've got. And we can plan it out over 30 years. This thing about 2 or 3 months in the bank account, that's not a reserve. That's just to have a buffer in the bank for if something happens and you've got cash flow to pay the security service provider and your staff. In the PCAM study that I did, the study that I did for my PCAM at Piccoli Ranch with Put in Nevada, in Las Vegas, the moment you buy something, you need to put a reserve amount already away. And you can't touch that reserve. You're not allowed to touch that reserve for anything. I made the comment during COVID to Dawn and them. I said, well, maybe we should go into those reserves. And she stopped me. She said, it's legislated in certain states in America that you cannot use that reserve fund for anything else what it was put aside for. To stop exactly of people saying, no, we will do the roads next year. We will do it next year until one day it's all one pothole. Or, well, like what happened at Champlain Towers, the building collapsed and people died.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks, Johan. And while I've got you, can you share an example of a scheme that's currently gone through this method and what improvements have been made to their overall management?
So I'm not going to give names because
No,
some of
that's
them
fine.
might find it might be, and some of them are on the call. So we had a one specific scheme that worked on a target. So before we got involved, they said we want X amount in the bank, and we showed them that you don't need X amount, or the X amount was not good enough. Our other challenge that we have is because it's quite a new concept. Where best practice say you do it, say in detail every 3 or 5 years, our recommendation is for the first 3 years you do it annually. So there's some people on the call, we're doing it for now for the second year, and they use it at the AGM for budget purposes, or not at the AGM. When they start to do their budget, we get involved now. We look at the budget, we look at how much money they require, and they freed up money because this is how they planned it to do a huge capital investment, not part of our reserve study, but they could use it to show that they've got enough money to do a capital investment on the estate. And some of the other clients, instead of the estate manager, and this is my old classic example, if you go into a control room, previous technology, after a while the screens start to burn and you see the images. And how do you convince a board to spend 20,000 Rand on new screens? It's still working, the image is fine. I said, well, in the reserve fund, it's 5 years from now, we're in year 5, replace it. And the decision was taken in 3 seconds.
Yeah,
No issue whatsoever. So
correct.
we're getting, Jeff, we're getting into that cycle now where another client, we signed them up now for until 2028, where that specific manager, I mean, he starts to drill into the detail now. We can help him to say, this is the reserve portion. We can make it bigger. We can make it smaller. This is the percentage. This is where you are. This is what you can bring in. We forgot about that. So it helps them with their planning and to also give owners comfort because we're getting older. Some of the estates that sit here on this call is now 25, 30 years old.
Yeah.
They're in the start to replace big stuff.
So you're not referring to me. You're not referring to me when you say we're getting older.
Jeff, there's a specific clause in the components that long-term, like reservoirs, you never replace them. So I'll categorize you with those things. It's
Thank you, Jack.
If I can just add to that, maybe, and
Yes,
just to
go.
touch on the question that you asked earlier. The data is backed, sure, by experience, but we're not engineers. I thought I want to say we're not I'm an electronic engineer, so I'm not a civil engineer. But the point is, whether the bricks is going to cost 5,000 Rand or 5,200 Rand, I almost want to say that's not the point here. It is to start, like Johan said. So many states got nothing in this area. So it's to get the year one gone. Yes, it's still a guess, it's still an estimate, it's a very scientific estimate, but it's to get those, just to get the things on the table, get the process started. As I also said to you earlier, Jeff, for us it's quite important. This is not a system. Yes, of course, everywhere I'm involved, there's some app being developed. So don't worry, there's an app coming. But it's a service. It's a professional service that we offer clients, and it's something we want to do yearly, like financial auditors. So I'm sure you can go to some big engineering firms. They can come to you, states. They will put IoT devices on your roads and measure the vibration and give you some estimate, and that would be fantastic. But that would cost millions of rands, I suppose. So I think the service we're trying to offer is to guide clients just to get the process started, to get something on the ground, get something in there. And as you go through the process, as Johan said, some of our clients are year 2 or 3 already. Now you start improving and dialing down into the details because now you thought it's going to cost you 5,000 Rand. Then you actually do it next year and you see what it cost you 5,250 Rand. Cool. So then you add it and you update the system. So it becomes a self-learning and healing system. So I guess my message is we don't know exactly if the brick is going to cost 10 Rand or 10 Rand 50. But I don't think that's the point. You need to list the brick and you need to know about the brick and start planning for that brick.
Yeah. I'll give you, just to add to Adrian, as we get these engineer reports to say, this is my estate. You've got to replace this piece of road next year. You've got to replace that section in 2 years' time. So it was, in this specific instance, it was an unbelievable detailed engineer report. Yeah. But how do you financially plan for it? How do you sit on Excel and then the general manager touches something in the formula changes. So we took that information and we plugged it in over 10 years for them and showed them exactly the graph in terms of how much money they're going to require over those periods for the roads. And then they set for a bit.
Yeah, I got you. Makes so much sense to me. Adrian, I'm going to go back to you. Unexpected challenges, unexpected issues like expenses that you didn't expect, inflation, underfunded reserves within the framework. How do you ensure that each community's unique needs are taken care of? I've often found, just to build on to that question, that there are products out there, very few, but there are, that simply send you a template and instructions 1 to 10, and then you sell the kit or whatever the case may be, or the toolkit or whatever you want to call it, and then it's over to them. So one have to look at the long-term objectives of the plan, and more importantly, what I'd like you to address is how does your, and I like what you call it, a service, address unique needs of every single different estate, because we all have them.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I think that's a big difference. And I almost immediately want to make mention of someone who did pioneer work in this area, Jeremy. And he started a system called Irmos, the core system. We're all aware of it. 10 years ago. Apart from maybe being ahead of the market, which I've experienced before, I think the difference that Johan and I, and that's exactly as you say, Jeff, I did mention it earlier as well, is we offer a service, not a system. Yes, we are developing what we call a component management app, and I know there's a question on the floor about integrating with other asset systems. We might not even get into that details, but I think to answer your question, Jeff, and that's what we found maybe the need is at the moment. Again, to compare it with maybe auditors. An auditor don't send you a copy or login details to Caseware and say to you, okay, do your own financial audit. Sure, there's tools, and I'm also going to say we're tool agnostic. We've used the core system successfully before. We are building a component management system side just because we've got control over that. But at the end of the day, it's a service, and being able to cater for unique needs is exactly that. We want to sit in front of you, and that I guess that limits this. It's not a bulk service. It's only you and me. We want to spend good time with our clients. So we'll come sit in front of you multiple times, talk to you about our estate specifically. And that's where, again, Johan is so invaluable in this process because it's almost become a best practice consultation session, or his advice. I mean, and then it becomes very interesting discussions. So it's individual sessions. There's no fixed rules. I almost want to say also contrary to what you probably heard out of my mouth many times before and my Glowent had, no, we don't customize. This time I would love to customize. So we're offering individual service. We're offering it's not a bulk system we're building, and obviously the bulk systems, volume-based businesses like Globant's got its place, and there's very good reasons for this. But in this case, we've got tools, and we'll present you with the tools. But more important is individual service. We sit and we work with you, and yes, and that's why it's also not a few $100. It's a bit more expensive, I suppose. But Johan and I am cheap. Don't worry, we old already. We're not that
Yeah.
valuable anymore. But then I want to end up as well, Jeff. How do we deal with also one touching point that's important as well is we don't cater for insurance events. So we had meetings with insurance companies, maybe bringing them in, and you know some of them. I can mention NRC, Tremaine, we know them very well. So we can maybe assist and also bring that part of the package. But we assume we typically don't cater for total replacement. So if there's a car, truck coming drive through your wall, we assume that's an insurance event. So it's more the maintenance and then eventual replacement of components. And then, as I said earlier as well, unfortunately, to be very honest with you, it remains a guess. So something might happen next year that we didn't plan for on all our best efforts. But in that case, 99% either you'll be covered by insurance or some unforeseen thing, unless those sections aren't in place. But that's why we maybe want to bring it all in part of the bigger package. But generally, we found those things to be in place quite well. And then at least you can stand up in front of people and say, hey guys, we didn't see this coming. Despite our best planning, our efforts, this we did. But I think that would be few and far apart then.
Good. All right, Jake, let's cut to the chase here. So someone on this platform loves you. They want to meet with you urgently. First question they may ask you is, what involvement is going to be required of me? I'm already busy. Do you come in and do everything and present us with this wonderful thing? Or is it important that management is involved? And then what is that involvement throughout the process?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. So we would like to have management involved all the way because they know far more than we do what's happening on the estate. But our first is we look at your current asset list. We re-look at those things that we receive. We put it in a format, and then we just ask the questions. We don't expect, if you take that service for you to necessarily do the techie and sunscreen, but it is good for us to know or to ask the staff on the ground to double check with us. Some prefer to give me just the paperwork and we do it ourselves. Some it's a combination. Some we just do a desktop study. But in the beginning, especially the bigger estates, we don't expect you to work on the system because that's what we found in the previous one. is everybody's too busy, but it's to
Yeah.
check things for us. We counted 6 mini subs. Oh, there's 7. I thought it
Yeah.
was in a good condition. No, it's bad. So it's that kind of thing. Maybe in year 1 you can get away with things, or in year 1 you do it in detail. In year 2 you get away with things, but it's a combination of. We'd like the management team to be involved in the process. Then there's also the input data, and the input data we refer to the financial side, levies, money in the bank, those kind of things. And there we need the accountants to give us, the input, or the
Yeah.
financial manager.
Yeah, and maybe a further statement from my side, good governance comes to mind and best practice comes to mind as well. I know there's some financial people online today. If you look at it from a tax perspective, um, we do stand a risk if we don't do anything about reserve planning. And I'm talking about good, proper, integrated, professional reserve planning of a tax issue. So we've got 100 million in the bank. None of it has been allocated anywhere. If you do your reserve plan and you can show anyone that needs to look at where those costs have been allocated, then you stand less chance of having a tax issue or having to answer any tax questions,
Yeah.
you know. And on the actual subject of the question, the reserve plan belongs to the estate. Once it's done, because it's a service that is provided, Smart Reserves don't own the program. It's your program. It's your program. It's your analysis. It's your system. It's the only thing they own is the license and the intellectual property behind the model. But at the end of it, it's got to be your plan. Therefore, you need to be involved in the plan itself. Jono, I'm going to come to you. I know a couple of people had questions that were posed when they registered, Jono. Are there any that haven't been dealt with by Johan and Adrian that you would perhaps just like to raise quickly for either
Uh,
Johan or Adrian to respond to?
Yeah, so there was one that I think Adrian would probably want to share his screen for, but that's how do the HOA start to implement? What is the process from kind of start to finish? So I'll let Adrian get prepared to share his screen on that, and then maybe while he's doing that, the other question was the integration into other asset management systems such as GIS or similar systems like that. Those are really the only two that were raised beforehand that haven't been touched on.
All right, so maybe Jake, while Adrian sets up his screen, Jake's the integration. I know we've been faced with that question for years and years and
Yeah.
years. I want to buy this new app or this. Does it integrate with access and communications and clubhouse bookings and tennis court bookings? Can I just, maybe you can address that issue while Adrian
Yeah.
loads his page.
Yeah, so Jeff, for me, is it depends on if they say integration, what type of integration. Does Excel speak to Word and Word to Excel? Yes, they do. But in
Yeah.
our case, it's information that we pull through. So we will probably pull information from GIS and then give a report on the back end with the financial modeling and stuff with that. So we can interface. It's not impossible, but it depends on which level. Integration is like with the access control, it's this buzzword. Does my visitor management talk to this and to this and to this and to this?
Yeah.
In our case, it's not that complicated.
Not that, yeah. Okay, Adrian, you want to share something?
Yes, let me quickly share my screen.
You got about 3 minutes, Adrian, then we're going to open it up to the floor.
Sure. I think can you guys see my screen? Sorry, I don't use Zoom all that often anymore.
I've got it open on my side as well, Adrian, if you prefer.
Maybe just a website. So I'm going to refer you guys back to our webpage if you don't mind. Can you see my screen at the moment, or did I mess it up now?
Yeah, I can
We
see your kids.
Oh, good. That's a beautiful picture to see. Then you can
There we
probably
go.
see this. Okay, excellent. So you'll see it behind me, myself and Johan. If I move my shoulder one way, there's our web address. Please refer to that. We've got a summary of the delivery process on there. And this is just a speak short quickly talk about. Yes, I need to do it clockwise. Everybody's telling me that. I'll swap it around. But I did mention quickly the components. So there's basically two sections to this, as I mentioned. What we do is the component list compilation, which is basically looking what needs to be done on a yearly basis, daily basis, monthly basis, both looking at replacement and maintenance to keep the estate as it is for the next 50 years, or the community or the facility. As we said earlier, yes, we can throw in, we want to build a new community center in 5 years in the pot, but that's step one. We have developed or busy developing what we call a component management app system. I'm fortunate enough to be start a business that I'm involved with at the moment. This is a project or something I do with you on. It's called 820 applications, and 82 for those, I'll let the cat out of the bag, is there's another organ window involved. He's my younger, prettier, better version of me. He's 20 years, but he's the developer. He coded most of the glowing system as well. He does magic. So we are developing an app, a system that will assist with the component management. And typically that's something that will be ongoing. That is basically a maintenance portion. So we have a plan of what needs to be done when, and then the idea is for that to remind the facility or the maintenance manager of to do it, and then that person can either decide to do it or not to do it or move it on, and that becomes a self-healing, self-prophecy system. And that's probably where the question, if the GIS systems and things like that, which is a similar system, I suppose, a facility management system. So absolutely, I know also with the answer, what you have heard out of my mouth many times as well, is yes, of course we can integrate. So in theory we can, we just need to look, like Johan said, what's the benefit and what we want to get out of that. So I don't want to go into too much detail there, but ultimately we need the data in our component management app, and that then gives us basically what we say, that's almost the end of step one. Then we do a line in the sun, and that's like I said, the component management or the maintenance or the updating of the components we see as an ongoing thing. But then we would like, our recommendation is once a year to come and draw a line in the sand. And so we're going to draw a line in the sand where we are at the moment. Johan does big practice. We go through everything and we say, cool, this is what we anticipate we need to do. And then we do the financial study around it. Then the process will go on again for a year, and then we'll draw a line in the sand. And that's specifically the financial planning thereof. So we'll then export the data, estimate how much it's going to cost, and basically end with a 30-year spend plan. If you do what you said you're going to do according to this plan, whether it's 80% correct or 90% correct, almost like I said earlier, not the point, this is how much money we will need. And then we do what we call a current reserve fund strength analysis. So I'm rushing myself. That's where we go into what funds is available currently. How much do you have in the bank? What are contributions are made? Are you transferring your depreciation into a fund? Well, how are you currently funding it? And then we do an analysis and we say, okay, fine. Based on the current data, you're okay for about 5 years. And we do a percentage to that. That's NRSS stuff. We'll say you're 30% funded or 50% funded. And then we say, but to get to 100% fully funded, this is what we'll need. And I'm rushing myself. And I think point 4 is very important, where Johan and I sit with you and say, okay, fine. Yes, you can't now increase special reserve levies to 1,500 Rand a month. But what's the plan? How are we going to get to that? We look at resource leveling. Eskom knows a lot about that. So yeah, it's a whole process. I know you're cutting me short, Jeff. So and then
No, it's fine. Carry on.
Yeah, get back to that same process again. So I think so. There's the component side to it, and then there's the financial analysis and planning, and then the journey together to get to 100% funded. I think that's let's stop with that. But please speak to us. It's not a simple process. I think that's what I'm saying as well. Cool.
Yeah. This is a no-brainer. So as soon as Adrian stopped sharing screen,
Trying to stop. Please stop me.
lovely family there.
You can still see my family. That's not
Yeah,
good.
just stop sharing.
I'll stop now.
Please, thank you, Jono. You stop.
Sorry, I'm trying, yeah. I
The
might
green button.
quickly just share mine and then stop sharing mine. There we go.
There we go. Perfect. Sure. Now you know why we got Jono in the team. All right. Okay. Some questions, guys and girls. We've got 10, 15 minutes. You want longer? We've got longer. But I know Adrian and Johan have got other meetings to go to. So Kita's from mobile. How does the costing of the value proposition and ongoing service work? It's just an outline. Obviously, I understand if you say, we need to look at your needs, we need to look at the development, we need to look at, I understand all of that. But it is a good question. How does it work? How does the funding work? Anyone?
As much as possible.
As much as possible. Yeah, for Keto, it's about 500,000 Rand signing on fee, Keats. That's especially for you, because Keita's worked with Johan before, so she knows.
And I
Johan,
know how much money she's got in the bank. So no, Jeff, we I mean, our things has also developed and evolved over a period of time. There's the ongoing that we'd like to do the hosting fee or the license fee. And then there's the sort of the annual on-site analysis and those kind of things. So we try and break it up between the hosting, the on-site analysis. And if you don't want the on-site analysis, you just want to do the desktop, we look at it. There's also in our costing model, there's a few things that's a driver. You know, the nature of your state, who does the infrastructure belong to, roads, services, sewer plants, and those kind of things. But three basic stuff. One is the hosting or the license fee. Secondly, the on-site analysis, how far we need to get involved. And then obviously the program that, or the report that we kick out. We try and break it up into a deposit and then progress payments.
And in terms of timing, Jakes, an estate with 200 homes, 10 years old, in an ideal world, fully involved with management, and you guys, are we looking at days, weeks, months, or years?
Jeff, it all depends on the availability and the speed that the estate can work. You know, it's some estates it's 2, 3, 4 months. Other estates, you know, have been struggling since February last year because there was a change in management, change in the financial manager. Now you're on the back foot. You almost start to redo things. But I think in a ideal world, I would say 6 months, just because of availability and, you know, I'll see you tomorrow. I can't tomorrow. I'll see you the next day.
Yeah.
You know, availability of staff, because some of the stuff you can do online and some of them you've got to meet in person. You know, you've got to face to face. 6 months.
Okay,
but
cool.
but again, if we can take all Keita's money, we can do it in a week.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Thanks, Keith. Any other questions, guys, for Johan and Adrian? Just I can't navigate across 2, 3 screens, so just unmute and go. Anything? Sure, that means you two guys did one hell of a job. No questions from the floor.
We bought the hell out of them. So no, Jeff, I think even if there's no questions, I've already received the email from one of the guys on the as Dawn says, shoot me an email. South Africa, you can't say shoot me an email because people will start to duck. Pop us an email, reach out to us. We'd like to get you everybody first round at least, or some of that we don't know in person. You know, get a feel for the estate. Let's get the costings out. Lots of the estates are, and we know that. It's not necessarily in the budget, so you've got to ask. So it's budget season now, then we can get it in for 2026. And in our reserve study, line number 1 is the reserve study cost for the next year. So we build it in. So you don't have to pay it out of the OPEX. You pay it out of your reserve funds. We've worked that one out long time ago.
Good point.
Just as a quick comment, Jeff, now that you've got 1 or 2 minutes. Remember, a component is not necessarily an asset or something that you can touch. Yeah. It can be more than, if it's a landscaping upgrade, a good example, one of the callers on here, there's more than one of them, after 15 or 20 years, they had to realize they had to clean their dams. And they dropped zeros to clean those dams. That's something that we can put in the reserve study. A fish count, for those of you who've got dams, we can put it in in the reserve study. So it's not necessarily an asset, it's a component, and there's a test. If it's got a useful life, if it belongs to the homeowners association, and there's 2 or 3 other things that we do, then it qualifies as a component.
Very, very good point.
Jeff, if I could, it's Rob here again. I always chip in with a comment or something.
Well done, Rob.
You
Go
don't
for it.
mind? Hi, Jan.
Rob
Hi,
Miller.
again. Um, just one
Hello,
thing
Rob.
how's it, guys? I just need to make a comment really in terms of how one uh, how you name these reserves that you or different aspects that you put into your reserve fund. You've got a capital reserve fund, you may have an earth resale levy or a buy-in, road reserves, etc. One just needs to be careful how you label these things, both in your constitution and in your financials, because there are tax implications. And I'm sure, Johan, you know where I'm coming from here. And I think it's just important that all of those on the call, outside of the reserve study uh, um, uh, uh, webinar that we're listening to, it's just important that we all understand how to apply these reserves and to name them correctly, because you can end up with a hell of a tax problem at the end of the day when you submit for your tax exemption, etc. Netta, something
Yes,
to
Rob.
bear in mind. Thanks.
Yeah, and as a comment on that, and that's not necessarily linked to reserve studies, but I pick up now that some of the clients that we deal with is we create different reserves, water reserve, road reserves, maintenance reserves, to ring fence things a bit more now that we're getting a bit older, so that some of us charge a road levy while the guys are building, and we ring fence that to maintain roads. Or the water that we make, the money that we make on the water, put in a reserve to use for maintenance on our sewer plants and meters and those kind of things. But it's a very good question, and I'm sure the taxman will have a different view than we, but it's we will look into it. Thanks.
Good. Any other comments, questions, observations? You'll see that Jono put up Johan, Adrian, and Almarie's contact details. So probably best to email Almarie if it's to set up an appointment. Am I right? If it's a question based on what was said at the meeting, email Adrian or Johan. Um, and I see the phone numbers aren't there. Is that all right, or would you like your phone numbers put up on the chat? You don't have a problem with that? So maybe John will just put the phone numbers for Adrian, or Adrian and Johan maybe just do that yourself, or email them, or you can get them on the Glue Up platform, of course, and have a direct message to them.
So I'm horrible on the phone. I know everybody that's tried to call me before, so I apologize in advance. But yeah, if I don't get them,
Ah, so
I'll be late.
you're not happy that I raised that question then,
I
Adrian?
just don't.
That's why Elmarie's there, and I know she's listening. So just put a divert on his phone, Elmarie, directly to you.
Done.
Done.
So Jeff, on Monday, I made the joke about the 555.
Yes.
And the developer here at Lancera, where I'm currently at, his cell phone number is 082 555, and then,
Yeah.
and I had to phone him yesterday, I almost gave his number out, but yeah, I put my number in there.
Isn't it amazing? Every number in America starts with 555.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it probably doesn't exist because everybody will phone it.
That's right.
In
It's
the
just
movie.
a movie, yeah.
Yeah.
All
Also on the
right,
website, there's a
guys.
nice little form that you can complete. We do have some basic questions when we do, so to speed up the process with one call, you can see on the Smart Reserves website, there's a quote request button. So you can just click on that, and then there's a few basic questions we ask, and then we'll get back to you as well.
Okay, fantastic. Good point. All right. Well, thank you, ladies and gents. Thank you to everyone that attended this session. A special thank you to Johan and to Adrian and to Almarie, also to Jono for setting it all up. It's been absolutely fascinating, and so good to have these guys still as involved in the industry as they always have been. We moan about things a lot, during chapter meetings and sessions like this, and we have lots of challenges. But at the end of the day, when this industry gets in your blood, it stays in your blood. I know you're talking to Johan, some of our blood is black and white, and other people have blue blood in their veins, for the blue bulls and the sharks, but we're still mates and we still interact a lot. You know that Johan is on the board of the Residential Communities Council, and he's vice chairman of the Community Association Institute of South Africa. So while we've got you, if I may, Johan, from a CASA point of view, if there's anyone that wants to look at some of the current programs that are coming up that CASA are offering, I know there's the communication module. They've just done a 201, I think, Johan, planning a 202 or 203 or whatever it is. Please speak to Johan on that subject as well. We haven't covered it today. Maybe we will in the near future, where maybe AJ and yourself can do a webinar such as this. It may be a good idea, Jakes.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, wow, and thank you for that. Really, really, really appreciate that. And thank you again for the kind words. 19 to 21 November, in person at Peekanoot, 202 and 203. It's about communications and leadership. Why those two is just the sequence that we brought him over from when I did the work in Dubai, where I had to attend those courses. But it's, and for those of you who are interested, drop me an email, pop me a WhatsApp, I add you to the stuff, 19 to 21 November. Okay. And Jeff, I'll take you up on this offer. If we can talk about education, it's close to everybody's heart here. And being in the recruitment, you see it often. It's people are desperate and not desperate. They're looking for proper education out there. And for those of you who attended the M100, I mean, it's a magnificent course. Yes, yeah, okay. That would be great, Jeff, if we can do that. Thank you very much.
Let's make it happen, Jake.
Yeah.
Jono is online still, so between Jono and I and yourself, let's make it happen from the next couple of weeks or so.
Awesome. Thank you,
All
Jeff.
right, once again, thank you,
Jono.
everybody. Jono's got a thumbs up going up the screen there. It was beautiful seeing you all again. We've got chapter meetings coming up in November and early December, so watch this space. Please have yourself a beautiful day and a beautiful rest of the week. God bless everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.